of representing victims and survivors that are oftentimes involved in catastrophic incidents that affect their lives.
If anyone looking for a personal and loving relationship with law, I would choose Bear Law.
At Bear Law, our goal is to turn victims into victors.
What's up, sports fans? This is Talk Colada presented by Boot Crew Media. Talk Colada presented by Coded Collection. Before you buy your next hat or t-shirt, ask yourself, is it comfortable? Does it represent who I am and where I come from? And if you tell yourself, no, pal, if that's what you call yourself, I want you to visit codedcollection.com. Codedcollection.com, CODEDCOLLECTION. Get your area code 504 merch right now and use the code Colada10 for 10% off. Today in sports, the sports books are live here in New Orleans. Noah Gold Rugby's preseason kicks off. And when I was 6 years old, my dad did probably the coolest thing a father could do for his son. Thanks to Chris Simcoe at CBS Sports, he invited me to go to the Super Bowl. And what we witnessed was Tom Brady's first Super Bowl win. And today, we're not going to talk too much about Brady because we have Sean Fazende on the show. But Tom Brady and Big Ben have retired from the NFL. The greatest of all time. Talk a lot starts right now with Sean Fazende, Fox8 Sports Anchor. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I mean, I'm just kind of blown away. Just a casual Saturday, and the greatest of all time is no longer in the mix. It's an interesting feeling, and obviously the jokes came out from the Saints side that the NFC South is now wide open. What's your first take on Brady saying bye-bye?
Well, been around for a long time. You mentioned that first Super Bowl. I mean, it just feels like it was 20 plus years ago. How different the game looked, how different the game was played, and he's kind of stood the test of time. And he's going out. He's not being forced out. He's going out on his own.
Yep.
You think about him, think about Big Ben a couple days ago, Sean Payton, obviously, which I'm sure we'll get into. Who knows what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, this is a big offseason with some big names essentially taking a break. And I guess in Brady's case, calling it a career. And there's no doubt about it. He is the GOAT. But, Saints fans can take a little bit of pleasure in knowing that perhaps they had the GOAT's number, at least for the last 2 years he was in Tampa Bay. So, look, all respect from me. I know some people don't like Tom Brady, but to play this game at that high level for that long and have that much success, nothing but immense respect. The game is too hard. And to have 7 rings, 10 appearances in the Super Bowl, 10 appearances in the Super Bowl is unbelievable at that position. Just the longevity to have 10 Super Bowls is certainly something. So, and 7 rings. So, all respect from me. So, Tom Brady is out, and we'll see what happens in the NFC South now because, man, that is really, really it's a step down when it comes to what quarterbacks are left now when you talk about that division.
I'm going to show a comment real quick before we dive into Sean Payton. And that is that there's a tweet saying he's not thought of his retirement decision yet. I need to know if that TB12 account holds some truth since they deleted the tweet. Hey, you never know, but, all signs look towards usually, Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter and Jeff Darlington and these guys who come out with this news. Most of the time they're right. So, I think it is the end for Tom Brady. And as our Saints expert here at Boot Crew Media tweeted, Chris Rosviglu, the NFC South is wide open. Speaking of the NFC South, obviously the Saints are what Sean and I want to talk about a little bit today. And first, let's just get into your journey to the Fox8 Sports Anchor desk. Just talk about your journey being in New Orleans, particularly from 2006 when Sean Payton and Drew Brees got here, and your journey as an anchor covering Sean Payton and the Saints.
Yeah, well, I was, I guess I got out of LSU and I went and worked at a station called HTV down in Homa for about 6 or 8 months, something like that. And then I left there and was working at WWL TV as a producer from '04 to '08.
Okay.
So I was all my sort of covering of Sean Payton in the '06 and '07 seasons. It was more of a producer role. Then I left, went to Fox 8. I was able to catch on there as a part-timer originally. They had another show that they were producing on their digital channel, which is a channel that at the time no one really watched, but they did do a daily sports show, so I contributed to that. And then from there, that grew to they ended up, leaving that show behind. And then from there, right after that, shortly was the '09 season. And the '09 season, that's when the Fox 8 Live tailgate show that you now see every Sunday with us was born, because we had no pregame show before then. But the Saints kept winning and winning and winning. So we were just doing a special every week because they just kept winning. And then all of a sudden, it became popular. It became part of the game day routine. And of course, from a business standpoint, it sold. The sponsors were able to buy in. And here we are still doing that show. And from there, it branched out into the final play, which we've done forever on Sunday nights, game plan, which we do on Wednesdays. But then that moved into Black and Gold Review on Monday. Juan Kincaid, Deuce McAllister, and myself do it now. Tuesdays, it's Fox 8 Overtime. Wednesdays, obviously, is game plan, as I mentioned. Friday is now the Fox 8 Football Friday show, which is our prep show. And then Sundays, we do the game day routine, Fox 8 Live Tailgate, Final Play, and then the Overtime podcast. And then, my journey with Sean Payton, just covering him, has always been a professional one. I was never early in his career here with the Saints, and he kind of alluded to this. He was not the easiest guy in the world to cover. He didn't like it when something was out there and that he didn't like. And a lot of times it was, you got a phone call as a reporter. I was fortunate. I never was on the other end of one of those really intense phone calls. I'll leave it at that. And he did mellow a bit towards the end of his tenure here.
I was about to say completely different guy than the guy we saw at that press conference when he
right,
first came.
Exactly. And when I say intense phone calls, I'm talking very intense phone calls with, let's just call it adult language being used in those phone calls. And it's just firsthand accounts from people that had them. Again, somehow, some way, I guess I never ticked them off enough to get one of those calls. But, covering him was never boring. Always relevant. Always had to stay on top of everything because he just had this knack for staying in the news cycle. And obviously in New Orleans, the head coach of the Saints is going to be one of the biggest public figures, but not just with the Saints. I mean, nationally, he was always relevant. Sometimes that was great. Sometimes that was not great. But nonetheless, you had to always stay on top of your game, so to speak. And it really did. I felt like it made me better because I explored ways in covering teams and covering players and covering him that I didn't know before. You had to develop sources. You just had to stay on top of everything. And as everything kind of evolved and the Saints became one of the best teams in the NFL, you really became one of the more prominent beats in the entire NFL. So for that, I'm certainly grateful and appreciative. It was a pretty professional relationship between he and I. I don't know that he would think of any other way. I know I certainly view it that way. And I don't really know what it's going to be like covering another Saints head coach because, frankly, when I got into this, he had just got hired. So it wasn't the only other coach from the Saints that early in my career was Jim Haslett. I never really covered him directly, just a few times here and there. So I'm curious to see what it's going to be like post Sean Payton because he was such a force inside that building, and really it was such a force in the way we all had to cover sports in this city. Yeah. I'm curious how it's going to be when he's not now that he's gone.
Yeah, you make a great point too. I mean, I was telling my sister, that I might not be here right now, doing a sports podcast and covering sports if it wasn't for Sean Payton. Because I mean, you think about it, he came in '06. I was 12 years old. That's kind of the age where you really start focusing on sports around you and New Orleans sports. And I mean, the way that he turned the team around, but also the city around, just made everybody glued to the screen, when he was on the sideline. And I don't know that if the Saints had a lot of mishaps and tough seasons that maybe I wouldn't be as into Saints football, and I think a lot of us can relate to that. No matter what age you were when Sean Payton first got here. So incredible press conference. As I commented on one of your Facebook posts, it was a pleasure watching you guys, Fletcher, Fox 8, WDSU, all of the local stations cover Sean Payton and cover the Breeze Payton era. And as we just mentioned, Tom Brady, Big Ben retiring, Sean Payton retiring, at least for now. I do want to ask you the loaded question presented by Coded Collection, our sponsor. The loaded question is, do you think he's going to come back? Do you think he's going to coach the God forbidden Cowgirls, as Bobby Hebert calls them?
Yes, I think he comes back. I don't know if it's Dallas Cowboys. It feels like that flirtation has been endless forever.
Yeah.
I don't think he's done with coaching. I'm very curious how he does on TV, because I think that's the path. I think it's a TV for a year, maybe 2, and then get back in. And even if he doesn't get back in, I think it's going to be one of those kind of John Gruden deals where even if he doesn't get back in, his name's going to get leaked to every single opening because he's got that kind of leverage and that kind of power, and he will certainly exercise that leverage when he feels like it's to his benefit, and just like we all would. But yes, I don't think I think he's back into coaching at some point. I think whatever happens, look, if Dallas goes and wins the Super Bowl next year, no, it's not going to be Dallas next year. But if they screw up again, then yeah, it could absolutely happen at that point. He would have no restrictions at that point. I know it'd be some sort of minor compensation, or maybe it's a little bit more than just minor compensation he has to give to the Saints because he's under contract in 2024. But I don't think he's done. I think he understands the significance of another Super Bowl. I think he understands the significance, just like his mentor Bill Parcells, of not just doing it, but maybe doing it in a couple stops. I mean, Bill Parcells won 2 with the Giants. He got the Patriots to 1. He almost got the Jets to 1. He got to the Cowboys to the playoffs. So he did a lot and did a lot of different stops. So I do think that's a part of his legacy that perhaps he can explore. I just don't think it's this year. I do think it's a year of TV, maybe 2. I'm curious how good he does on TV because he loves the game. He knows the game. I think you saw this a little bit in his press conference, though, but there's a little bit of he's going to need some coaching on TV.
Yeah, he's going to need some media training because when you see
he's going to be great right away.
Yeah, no, I actually was thinking about that. I was like, Sean Payton's great in press conferences, and especially the one we just saw, his final one as the Saints head coach. But yeah, man, sometimes he throws out the word "look" a lot. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you and all your colleagues have noticed that. I mean, look, we played hard. I agree. I think he's going to need some media training because he definitely talks more like a coach than a broadcaster.
He's got to tighten it up a little bit because he can kind of drift. He can kind of ping pong from topic to topic. Right. So I'll be curious. But I do know this: if he got into it, he would like it. He would work really hard at it and to become good. Because I think he's got the knowledge and the personality to do it. He's just got a little bit of tightening up, a little bit of honing in, and maybe he can do it. We'll see.
No question. Sean, talk about the Saints offseason, what needs to happen. What are your thoughts on particularly the quarterback position and what you could see happen in, coming up here soon, and then quarterback, and then who's going to replace Sean Payton? Do you think Dennis Allen is the front runner, or do you think that the next coach is not in the Saints facility as we speak?
I absolutely believe Dennis Allen is the front runner. I think Sean Payton tipped his hand a little bit in the press conference when he mentioned him by name, and he kind of qualified with leading candidate or a good candidate within the building. If you listen to Mickey Loomis on Friday, every reason why you would give Dennis Allen this job, this is not a rebuild. We like our culture. We want our culture to remain, is exactly the reason why you would hire Dennis Allen. I believe it's his job to lose unless someone comes in and absolutely knocks Mickey's socks off. I think it's going to be Dennis Allen. As for the offseason, the huge shoe to drop that we weren't necessarily expecting was obviously Sean Payton, which also in turn impacts what I believe is the most important decision, which is finding your franchise quarterback. Because I believe with Sean Payton, they were going to go hunting for big game. They were going to go Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Maybe they make a move for Jimmy Garoppolo. Obviously, he wouldn't be in that elite category, but nonetheless, a name that you would certainly recognize. I know Derek Carr's name's been thrown out there, but who knows what's going to happen with them with their new head coach. So I think that impacts now what you do at the quarterback position because let's be real, unless it's a big offensive guy you bring in that's got past great experience, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, like a guy like Doug Peterson. I don't know that you're going to necessarily be able to recruit these quarterbacks to come in, the big name guys. You may now have to turn to the draft, which is something that I know may not excite a lot of people because this isn't a very sexy quarterback class, but nonetheless, that may be the route they have to go. Because if you're the Saints, you have to give yourself as many good options as possible to gain the most important position. Because if it's taught anyone anything, these playoffs, it's you need your guy. And the Saints had that
perfect example.
First year you didn't have that guy. You went through 4 starting quarterbacks. 4. The first year Drew was out. And even when he was out, he worked himself back in so it wasn't a catastrophic injury. So you got to get a franchise quarterback, bar none. If you believe Jameis is that guy, which, on the fence with, I think we all would agree. To me, I think the organization needs to show that. Another 1 year half-in thing, to me, does not work. I think that's another bit of we're not sure. And I think you got to find your guy, identify your guy, and go get that player. Because until you get that player, I think we're talking about 9-8 for a while.
Do you think the fact that Dennis Allen is the front runner and obviously is a defensive mind, he would be, the complete opposite of Sean Payton in the sense that he would most likely be leading the defense and would need a high quality offensive coordinator like Pete Carmichael or like someone else do you think the fact that Dennis Allen is a defensive mind, could that be an appeal to the quarterback coming in that, maybe he has more of a leadership role, or do you think that still hurts the case for a guy like Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers?
Well, that's an interesting way of looking at it. I do think you would keep the situation in place with Pete Carmichael because, he's been so steady for the last 16 years. And if you really listen to some of the quarterbacks, especially some of the younger guys that have come up in the system, they credit a lot to Pete Carmichael in terms of working with the young guys, getting the young guys ready. So I think, and if we're going with the theme of keeping the culture in place and not needing making wholesale changes, I think that would certainly make sense. Unless, there were some hurt feelings in terms of who you are looking at in the building. Maybe there are some other names that want to get serious consideration. If they don't, maybe there could be some hurt feelings. I don't know. But nonetheless, I think big picture, selling this New Orleans Saints to the most important position to the New Orleans Saints without one of the premier offensive minds is going to be tough. Yeah. So that's why I think the draft all of a sudden becomes a much more realistic possibility.
Couldn't agree more. Mike Thomas, talk to me about the man we saw in that picture I found from a while back. Talk to me about the basic question, right? Is Michael Thomas going to be playing in a Saints uniform come September?
Well, we saw his absence, what it meant. And he was a guy last offseason, I was like, he's done. The issue with the injury and thought he'd be back, was not back. You kind of saw the fan base turn a little bit. And then as the season wore on and it became abundantly clear just how much this team needs, not just one, but probably 2 wide receivers, all of a sudden it starts to shift. Again, that's all thinking with, Sean Payton as head coach. Now that huge, shoe has been dropped, he's under contract. You wouldn't give him away for nothing. I don't think he's as tradable as he once was, given 2 years of injury. So ultimately, I'm leaning more now towards him coming back. Now, there's something else here, because Michael Thomas was one of the best wide receivers in the NFL because his skill set married perfectly with where Drew was in his career at that time.
Yep.
The latter part of his career. If you really watch what Michael Thomas does, I call him a first-level receiver, 0 to 10 yards, best in the NFL. Does that match up with a Jameis Winston? Who knows? We haven't really seen them much together. Does that match up with whoever you bring in? And if you bring a young guy in, how does that work? How does that dynamic work? Because at that point, you would need the receiver to be a leader, someone for that young kid to lean on. Does he have the personality for that? So all these dynamics change with the new situation the Saints are in. But I think right now, given how desperate they are at that position, I don't know if they have a choice at this point. Unless they got a great offer from Michael Thomas, I do think he's going to come back.
H2O Salon and Spa is one of our sponsors. You got a good head of hair, Sean. We got to know of the 10 NFLSU players here. I got to know which of these 3 players. Here's the list: Joey B, Jamar, Shelvin, Moss, Honey Badger, Clyde, Darrell Williams, Andrew Whitworth, OBJ. But of these 3 players, 1, who has the best hair? And 2, who do you think brings their team to the Super Bowl? Odell Beckham, Jamar Chase, or Honey Badger?
Ooh. All right. Best hair. I'm going to go OBJ. He's always a little creative with his hairstyles. So I'll give it to OBJ. Of those 3,
who's going to lead their team to the Super Bowl? Biggest impact.
Biggest impact?
Yeah, biggest impact on their team.
Jamar Chase. I'm going Jamar Chase.
My guy. Yes, sir. I knew we were friends.
I'm going with Jamar.
I knew I liked you, bro. Okay. Talk to me about the AFC and NFC title games. Do you genuinely think, obviously, all Saints fans have converted to, at least all LSU fans have converted to Bengals fans? Everybody wants to see Joe Burrow beat the greatest offense in the NFL, in the Chiefs, I think, but also just a team that is absolutely on the rise and played one of the greatest games of football I've ever seen against the Bills. Do you genuinely think that the Bengals can win this game? And then we'll jump over to the NFC side after we talk a little bit about these guys.
I think they can. I don't know if they will. You got that franchise guy, you got a chance. Even when you get sacked 9 times, or 10 times, whatever it was last week, like Joe Burrow did. I don't think they're as complete as the Chiefs are. They don't have the same experience, but when you have Joe Burrow, and man, there is just a confidence that he brings every time he steps on the field. That he has just got it, and he just elate, just kind of elevates everyone around him. Yeah, I think he can do it. I don't know if he will do it, but I just love that. There's an aura about him, right? There's just an aura about Joe Burrow, and I believe every single person in Louisiana, with the exception of maybe OBJ's family or Tyrann Mathieu' family or Darrell Williams' family, a couple of the other opponents, I think they'll be pulling for Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals and Jamar Chase as well, just because it's such a great impact at LSU. 2 years in, 1 year in for Jamar Chase, but 2 years in with Burrow, you're already in the AFC title game, and Bengals were an absolute disaster of an organization for years. That's saying something. And again, it goes back to that whole, when the franchise has their guy, everything else seems to fall into place. And when you have your guy, you can even mask some other deficiencies in other areas. In his case, it's one of the most important deficiencies. He's got a weak offensive line, and yet here they are battling. So I think they can win. I'm certainly pulling for them.
No question. I got to ask, with all the sports books opening, we got Barstool Sportsbook and DraftKings and FanDuel and all. I mean, I could go on and on, but one of the things I was looking at when, you look at the free money bets and all these things is, you can do a player prop parlay and put a bunch of them, it's a long shot either way. Mm-hmm. But when I was going through those options on the Barstool Sportsbook, do you think it's going to be a shootout? I mean, right? That's what we're looking for. I think that's what everybody wants to see. Obviously, nobody wants the Bengals to get blown away, but are you picturing like a 38-35 game or like a 35-31 game from the Bengals and the Chiefs?
Absolutely. A game in the 30s. Absolutely. I think they, I don't know that the Chiefs pass rush is quite as strong as the Titans pass rush from a week ago. And I think the Bengals pass rush with the guy like Trey Hendrickson certainly can wreak havoc as well. I want to see another quarterback duel like we saw last Sunday night with Josh Allen against Patrick Mahomes. But I do think a game like that gets going. I don't see the Bengals getting blown out. I do see, kind of the rise of Burrow, especially if it feels like a duel in that game. And I think it could be shot for shot. And much like a week ago, whoever has the ball last, I think could have a chance to win. No
doubt. And the NFL is in good hands, even with losing Tom Brady and Big Ben, with guys like Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and, some of these big names. What's his name? The Chargers. I'm blanking.
Herbert.
Yeah, Justin Herbert. So NFL is in good hands, and super excited to see what happens at 2 p.m. on Sunday between the Bengals and the Chiefs. Is Odell Beckham going to be playing the winner of that game? Do you think the Rams can handle this hot 49ers team?
Yes, I can. And I have come around on Jimmy G because I think he's a guy that battles, and I've watched a ton of him over the last 6 weeks or so. Here's the key. Mm-hmm. This is if you go back to the last game of the season, this will be the fourth straight road game for San Francisco.
Yep.
Fourth straight. Yep. That is a huge ask. So I just think LA is a little more explosive, a lot more explosive. I love Deebo Samuels, what they do with him, moving him all over the place. I love their defense, and I'm higher on Jimmy Garoppolo than a lot of people. But I just think perhaps when you add it all up, it might be one or two too many big plays. But you can't just completely throw away how much San Francisco has had their number over the last couple of weeks. So I think 4 straight road games though, that's going to be tough for San Francisco. So I think LA will get the job done.
Sean, obviously neither of those two coaches are leaving anytime soon, their respective teams. But if you had your pick of the litter, which one would you choose to coach the Saints?
Oh, out of Kyle or McVay?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Shanahan. Here's why.
Sean, I thought you were going to say neither. I want Dennis Allen. No, that was just
of those two. I would go not McVay, Shanahan, because he's got probably the most. I'm a film nerd now. Yeah. He's got the most creative run game I've ever seen. To where it's like sometimes run games can be boring, but his run game is never boring, and you can obviously mix in. And he obviously has they can throw the ball as well. He's done it as well. So I'd go with Shanahan. The only drawback is Shanahan has not had the best, but they both lost Super Bowl games. Right. Shanahan, obviously, as a OC and head coach, and obviously McVay as well. That's a tough one. I'm gonna go Shanahan.
You're gonna go Shanahan. I want to remind people also. I showed the 10 NFLSU players still alive here in the playoffs. I do want to remind everyone here of these two guys from ULL and Tulane. This graphic decorated by Helm Paint and Decorating, Helm Paint and Supply. The whole month of February, you can get a free pint. You mentioned Talkolata at Helm Paint when you go to shop. But Elijah Mitchell and Cam Sample from ULL and Tulane. Talk about Elijah Mitchell's impact for the 49ers for me as we close out.
Yeah, how about that? You're kind of watching the games and you just kind of seeing how things are going. All of a sudden, Elijah Mitchell. I'm thinking, that's the ULL kid.
I know. And usually you never know who the hell the 49ers are going to play at running back. Sometimes they have Deebo Samuel at running back, but Elijah Mitchell has just become the guy.
Okay, this is something. And because I had him in my mock draft to the Saints. Was it last year or the year before? What year did he come out? I'm not sure. But so he was the guy I really liked because I like that style. But good for him, man. UL kid on the biggest stage, making plays, and to have that kind of trust and that system, as I just mentioned about the how sophisticated and creative their running game is, to trust a kid like that says a lot. So good for him.
Sean, last question for you. Talk about Juan Kincaid, man. I love that guy. I've been watching him forever. What's it like working alongside him?
He's something else, man. He's my brother. We've known each other for almost 20 years. We've got Great chemistry on air, as you guys can see. We've been doing it for so long. Great guy, great friend, great teammate, and it's not always easy to find in the TV business a good teammate like that. But man, we have our Kincaidisms that we like to mess with him about in the Fox 8 Sports office. He's a little bit of a contrarian, kind of a natural contrarian. We have our inner sports debates inside the office, so sometimes we'll kind of set him up a little bit just to see him go the opposite way. But he's a great man, and he's been in New Orleans a long time. He's now he's officially become a local. He's not from here, but he's officially become a local. So he's kind of become a mainstay in the sports scene here, and he's great to work with, man. So I'm glad he's over there with us.
Sean Fazende, from Brother Martin to LSU to the Fox 8 Sports Anchor desk. My man, I appreciate you hopping on and joining us, and we'll talk again soon, all right?
All right, buddy. Appreciate it.
Later, bro.
All right.
All right, folks, this is Talk a Lotta, where we talk a lot of sports. For Sean, I'm Jack, and we are signing out. Go Bengals.